we continue completions. Today again I do the basic things about completion, and today also I'll be little bit either fast or I will skip what you have already might have learned, especially some homological algebra. Now see, in the last two lectures there was no homological algebra, and so I will try to bring in some homological algebra, and some of that you might have learned already in the last lecture. So the first one is the connection of inverse limits with the completion. So how many of you already familiar with the concept of completion inverse limit? Okay, I will anyway, at places I have been very sketchy, so it's fine, let us do that. So first I want to start with so the notation. So A is our filter ring with filtration A dot. These are the, I will not say much, we have been doing that. And M is a filtered A module with filtration this. And we have seen that they will define a topology, and we are they will define actually a metric. And we will go to completion A cap and M cap. These are the Hausdorff completions. Hausdorff means, you see, this filtration, if it is Hausdorff, soon I will assume something more. If they were not, Hausdorff, then we will go by modding out the intersection of these filtrations. So, and these, there are natural maps from A to A cap and M to M cap. These are the canonical maps. And also, this is a iota A is a ring homomorphism. And this is a module homomorphism. And also, A is dense in A cap. That is because it's a completion. So that actually I have written the notes, but that we have not circulated that. That I will send it for this one. I thought it is boring details, so I didn't circulate it. Anyway, what is the universal property of the completion? That is, if M and A are as above, A and M are as above, then given any other complete module N with this filtration N, and a filter A module homomorphism A to M to N, filtered means it should, phi of Mn should go inside Nn for all N. Then there is a unique map, phi cap, from M cap to N, such that phi cap of M cap N is contained in Nn. That means the diagram, this diagram is commutative. In particular, this pair M cap and iota this is unique up to a unique isomorphism. So this is, and you see I have not written the proof. One can write the proof. I will write it afterwards. But right now, you know it or you check it. This checking is not very difficult. It's very routine. It's like a localization. So I will leave it to you to check. You would have done such a thing in your metric space course or topology course, I suppose. So see this, why this is very important, because see, if you see our definition of a completion, it is metric and then completing and checking several things. That one, either that one, or one could also define by universal property. And this will make it more categorical. That is what I am up to. So, see, the above universal property suggests that the completion can be constructed categorically by using the inverse limits. For example, see the tensor product. Tensor product is also considered constructed by using categorically. And once it is constructed, the definition is never used. It is used only the universal property. Same thing with the localization also. So whenever there is a universal property, that is a big advantage if one defines this concept by using a universal property. So what is the inverse limit? First of all, to talk about inverse limit, you need to have an inverse system. And to talk about inverse system, you need to have a directed set. So what is the directed set? Directed set is an ordered set such that given any pair I comma j in that set, you can always find a bigger index in I, k, so that both I less equal to k and j less equal to k. So that means it is giving a direction. If you try to write down the elements by using this less equal to, then it will give direction. That is why it is called directed set. For example, the typical prototype example, what we will use also is n less equal to, where less equal to is the standard usual order on n. Okay, so that is a directed set. Now given a family of A modules indexed by a directed set I, together with the family of A module homomorphisms Mj to Mi, this is denoted by Fi upper j, where j from where it is starting, that index is bigger, such that it satisfies this property that Fii is identity of Mi, and in this diagram is commutative. Whenever there is a bigger k, then we have a diagram like this, and then this diagram is commutative. Such a family is called inverse system of A modules. Now, before I go on, I didn't like the notation F power j. It is not a power, you see. So that if somewhere F square is involved, then that will create a problem. So I realized this after I wrote it. So the right way could be down writing instead of this Fij. So I would strongly suggest you please change that to that. The j also you bring it down. All right. So that is one comment. So is it clear what is the inverse system of a family of A modules indexed by directed set I? Now what is the limit of that? So inverse limit, that is also called a projective limit of an inverse system. This inverse system, I will not repeat that, I will not read out that one of A modules. Is an A module which is denoted by this, and a family of A module homomorphisms from the inverse limit to each Mi, which satisfy these obvious properties. The corresponding triangles are commutative for all I and j, and then this this is first condition, that this is a compatibility condition, and the second one is like a universal property that given any other A model homomorphism n and maps theta I from n to Mi satisfying these triangles commutative, then you can find a unique A model homomorphism theta from n to that in the diagram. Now, don't make things complicated, think simple way. Whenever you get stuck, please go to tensor product definition. Tensor product is also defined in similar way, but tensor product didn't have so many maps and so many this one. And the main motivation for tensor product was to study bilinear maps, and that we are reducing it to the study of linear maps. Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Sir, in the first part, we have I less than j, and the map is from Mi to Mj. Isn't it from Mj to Mi?
Yeah, it should be from that, and then corresponding thing will change. Yes.
Yes, sir.
That could happen. That is true what you say.
Yes.
So these arrows should be the other way.
Other way, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So it is inverse limit is defined by using the universal property. So Once it exists, it will be unique up to unique isomorphism is clear by the universal property. So we just have to prove the existence by constructing the universal limit. And that is what I have tried to. Even you should, Diksha, you should also note down these diagrams, whether my arrows are correct. That it can happen that my arrows are reverse or so. One reason could be it was boring for me to write it. But I want, on the other hand, I wanted to be self-contained and error-free, but sometimes error do happen. But once your definitions are clearer, one can fix the errors. All right, so this is the proposition. It says that the inverse, if you have an inverse system, the inverse limit exists and it is unique up to a unique isomorphism. Not only unique, but that isomorphism which defined a uniqueness, that is also unique. That is also part of this definition. That is also part of this universal property, no? The way it is stated. All right, so uniqueness is clear from the universal property 2 in the above definition. And the existence I will give you, actually one gives concretely, this is the module and you check that satisfies the universal property. And what is that? You take all the tuples in the product module. These are the product structure of A modules. Take the tuples so that the jth component here will go to ith component. So it is going backward. Remember that, no? Because the j is a bigger index. So j, xj will come later than xi. And then when you apply this one, it goes down, down, down. So that also partially explains why it is denoted like that. Why the arrow is on the other side. Direct limit, you would have seen the arrow on the other side. Right? Direct limit also, there is the concept of direct limit also, that is arrow is on the other side. That is because the way it goes. So now I didn't check, I left a page here that check that this does satisfy what we want, that 1 and 2. So that is it. And this inverse limit I want, in our purpose, I want to apply to specific inverse system. And that inverse system is the natural numbers. So the directed set is the usual natural numbers with the usual order. Initially I thought that I would write some examples of these inverse systems and inverse limits and so on. But then it would have diverted our mind from studying our completion, so I resisted myself. All right, so the theorem I want to stress today is, if you have a filtered ring with a filtration A dot and with a filtered module with filtration M dot, then there exists canonical isomorphism of A modules from A cap to the inverse limit, where M cap is the completion that we have defined earlier, and this inverse limit is just now we have defined. And what is the inverse system? This inverse system is, the modules are M by Mn and the maps are M by Mn to M by Mm, where now n is bigger. So this module, quotient module is, so from this quotient module to this, there is a natural map. This is a residue class map because our filtrations are decreasing. That is why if M is smaller, Mm is bigger than Mn, and therefore we have the natural residue class map. So this is the inverse system. And we want to define a map from M cap to this. And what is the map? Now, if you think there is a very natural map, so what is it? What was M cap? M cap was a residue class of the Cauchy sequences, right? So Cauchy sequences modulo the null sequences, that was M cap. And Cauchy sequences were defined by using the filtration. Null sequences also, conversions were defined by this filtration. And what is the map? Now you take a Cauchy sequence Xn, and that's why I wrote this curly bracket, and bar means you are taking mod that null sequences. And what do you do with that? Now you take Xn bar. Xn bar is what? Xn is nth term in this sequence. Take the bar of that, means read that in m by mn and apply fn m to that. And so you will take the tuple, and this tuple is running over n. So that is in the product. Now several things to be checked, that this is indeed an element. It's a priori an element here is clear, but this is indeed an element in the inverse limit. That one has to check. So that means it has to satisfy that property. No? So that is, we have to check that. Also, we have to check that this map is well defined. This doesn't depend on the residue class of the Cauchy sequence Xn. And then we have to check that it is bijective. And of course, we have to check that it is a model homomorphism. So all these things, one by one, has to check, which I have not checked here, but I think you are experienced enough from your homological algebra to check things. And at
Sir?
least once in a life. Yes, Monashri?
Sir, can you please define the map once again?
Okay. So you want to define a map from M cap to the inverse limit, right?
Yes, yes.
So what are the elements of M cap? They are residue classes of the Cauchy sequences,
Cauchy
modulo null
sequences.
sequences, right?
Yes, yes.
So I have taken a Cauchy sequence Xn, and I have taken the class of that, residue class of that.
Hmm.
And I want to map somewhere. So obviously, this is a sub of the product.
Hmm.
So I have to tell you some elements in the product, because
Hmm.
our inverse system is this. So you look at this. You take this nth term Xn and take the bar of that, means you read mod Mn and apply this Fn. These are natural residue class homomorphism. And now you get a product. This element is in the product of this M by Mn product module. And now we have to check that this is indeed an element in the inverse limit. That means it should satisfy some property, right? Namely this
Okay.
property. Only this
Yes.
property. That one has to
Yes.
check. But that is immediate, because see, this is very natural. So this is a filtration decreasing, and therefore this residue class map will have the triangle, and then so that we have to check it is indeed an element in the inverse limit. Secondly, you have to check that this map doesn't depend on the residue class of this Cauchy sequence. So that will make the map well defined. Thirdly, we have to check the map is bijective. And actually, one way to check the bijective is I define the inverse map directly. So that's why I've written in the bracket with inverse. I've defined the inverse. So what is the inverse? You take an element in the inverse limit, that is the tuple, yn bars because these inverse maps are like that. They are here and element here. And where does it map? Okay, so that is no, that is map. You take xn mod mn and in m cap. Now what is this xn? Did I write it? No, I didn't write it. All right, so this will give you have to get hold of some Cauchy sequence. And so this, you have to lift these and you have to get hold of Cauchy sequence, and then you have to take the image of that modulo in the null sequence. So check that. If you want, you don't take this inverse in the bracket, you forget it. Check somehow is bijective. Bijective you can check by using injective and surjective. So a lot of dirty checking is there, but at least once in a life we have to do that, like tensor product. All right, so now the next one is, now I am going to stick to ideal adic completions. What that means, I am going to consider only the filtrations which are adic filtrations. So that means what? I will now fix, yes? Yes, please, Panashri. Hello?
Yes, sir, I understood.
Okay. So A be a ring and Gothic A is an ideal in A and M is a module. Um, Mostly I will assume the rings are Noetherian, but sometimes I have forgotten that assumption to write it, but mostly I will write it. And if anybody has any doubt any time, even in the assignments, I might have forgotten Noetherian, so assume Noetherian. That doesn't, that will not hinder your understanding. In fact, it will help you. So eventually we will assume here also. In this, we are denoting A cap and M cap by the denote the adic completion of A and M respectively. That is defined by these adic filtrations. Powers of the ideal and here powers of the ideal times M. These are the filtrations and you are completing with respect to that. If your ring is not Noetherian for some reason, then or module is not finitely generated, then it may not be Hausdorff. Note that and we have definitely the canonical maps from A to A cap and M to M cap. And this canonical map is a ring homomorphism and that the other canonical map is an A module homomorphism. All right, usually when one say the completion, then one say the actually Hausdorff completion. So one go mod the intersection. But eventually the main part, main statement, we will assume things. Because anyway, we are not going to apply in a more general situation. So functoriality. Now, since you have constructed the completion categorically, it also will make sense to talk about functoriality. So that means I want to justify that the completion is the functor. Completion is a functor. That's what we have to do it. All right. So what does that mean? If you have a module homomorphism F from M to N, A module homomorphism, then by the universal property of the completion, there exists a unique module homomorphism F cap from M cap to N cap. So you look at this composition, F composition iota N, that is a map from M into the complete module, and therefore it will go through that completion. So this is existence of F cap is guaranteed by that universal property. So this diagram is going to be simply I've written that. And also, okay, so therefore we have an assignment M going to M cap and F A module homomorphism going to F cap, that is M cap N cap. It's the functor is A linear from the category of A modules to the category of A cap modules. Now here also we will have to check many things. For example, you have to check that if F is identity, F cap is identity. If F and G are two maps, composition makes sense. Then the G compose F cap of that is G cap composition F cap. All these built in to saying that it is functorial. And A linear functor means whenever you have A linear map here, it will go to A linear map here. So morphisms, on the morphisms, it is A linear. So I am going to list some useful properties of this functorial thing. So the first of all, this functor is right exact. That means it's a covariant functor. I forgot to mention. A linear covariant functor. The direction of the arrow is maintained. And second property is if A is Noetherian, then the functor is actually exact on the category of finite A modules. So not on all A modules, but finite A module will form category. And on that category, it is exact. It is a sub category of the category of A modules. So for one, use MCAP. Just now we proved that this M cap is a inverse limit of this system, and also use the fact that inverse limit is a right exact functor. These I have not checked. So here is lemma you need to prove that is inverse limit is a right exact functor. That's also easy. And this second one is will just immediately follow from the fact that we have to use Artin-Ries lemma, which we can use it because the ring is Noetherian and modules are finite in these two. All right. So details again I didn't write, but you formulate and write. You write the proofs. If you have any trouble, you can always ask any one of us. But when you ask a question, you should formulate your question very precisely. The moment you formulate it, you will not need to ask a question. Formulating, most often formulating a question itself is a problem. So pay attention to that. All right. Now I will deduce several corollaries. Suppose that A is Noetherian and M is a finite A module. Then we have a natural map because this A cap is a module, M cap is a A cap module, and therefore it will extend Bay change. This is the you take this module canonical map and tensor, and then it will give such a map. And this map is an isomorphism. But remember, M has to be finite module. In particular, M cap is generated by as an A cap module generated by the image of this iota map. So if M is finitely generated, this M cap will also be finitely generated. That also I should have mentioned here. All right. So now this is also very easy. Let us call this map to be theta of M. This is a map from A cap M or tensor over that to M cap. This is A module homomorphism. Since both the, now look at the, there we have two functors, M going to M cap, and the other functor is M going to A cap tensor M over A. The two functors. Both are covariant, both are right exact. And this theta is a morphism from the first functor to the next functor. That means this theta is a natural. That means if you change M to M prime and so on, then it diagrams are commutative. I think Indranath has done sufficient enough homological algebra to make a sense out of what I have wrote. So it is theta is a morphism from the first functor to the second functor, and finite A modules are finitely presented because our modules are finite modules, and we've got the ring is Noetherian, they are finitely presented. Therefore, theta M is an isomorphism on finite modules. Now, as usual, you have to write down a commutative diagram, first two rows resolving M, and then looking at the kernel, and then usual diagram chasing, and that will with using that you can show that this theta M is actually an isomorphism. You will have to use maybe 5 lemma or snake lemma or whatever. Homological algebra is a tool. So just to study homological algebra on its own is very boring, and one cannot teach to the other. One has to learn by themselves. All right. So next one. So remember this. M cap is just a base change, provided your assumption, provided your rings and modules are good. That means A is Noetherian and M is a finite module. All right. Next corollary, suppose A is Noetherian and then A cap is a flat over A. It's a module over A via that iota map, because iota is a ring homomorphism from A to A cap, so it's a module over that. In fact, therefore it's an algebra also with that structure homomorphism. Moreover, if A is contained in the Jacobson radical of A, then it is faithfully flat. Now I will not explain you these terms flat and faithfully flat. You have enough of that. All right. So what do the earlier statements say that because the assumptions are good. M to A cap tensor M, this is an exact on the category of finite modules, and hence it is exact on the category of all modules. So if some functor is exact on the category of finite module, then it is exact on the category of A module. This is the general functor category phenomena. So we will have to reduce to the finite case, because whenever you do any checking, that will involve finitely many elements to prove injective surjectivity. So then you restrict to that, and then you can reduce to finite case. So more than that, it's not advisable to say here anything. Okay, so that proves this functor is exact on the category of A module. That precisely means this A cap is flat module. For the next assumption, now here we have an extra assumption that A is contained in the Jacobson radical. So for the last part, we will need Prull's intersection theorem, which we do have because A is contained in the Jacobson radical. Therefore, intersection of A and are 0. So, and in this case, you note that M to M cap is injective because it's Hausdorff. So this map is injective, and hence this is non-zero if M cap is A cap tensor M is non-zero if M is non-zero, because see, when you tensor with A cap, this is injective and it's a flat, so it will remain injective. So this is non-zero, still it will be a sub of that, so it will be non-zero. And therefore, we conclude that it is faithfully flat. Faithfully flat means one to check is if a module is non-zero, then tensor with that, whatever you want to check faithfully flat, that should be non-zero. So is that okay? Shall I pause for a minute if you have a question? Anyway, our course is coming to end, so I would like to give a piece of advice that never give up a chance that you have your prerogative to ask questions. You have to utilize it. All right, so shall I go on? This is the disadvantage of online lectures. Yes, Nikhilesh.
Yes, sir, you may go on.
Okay. All right, next corollary. Or next one. Next one I want to discuss now associated graded ring, associated graded module, and initial models. Here also I wanted to make some comment. Okay, I will make it. Whenever we have an ideal A which is contained in the Jacobson radical and we consider AID completion of the ring with respect to this ideal, such rings are called Zariski rings. That means complete rings, complete with respect to an ideal which is contained in the Jacobson radical. They are called Zariski rings. Of course, after some time, we are going to concentrate on Noetherian local rings and M-adic completion. So they are all Zariski rings. All right. So sometimes you do have to consider general cases just to realize that what is good and what is bad. So now our setup is A is a ring, Gothic A is an ideal, and M is a module. And GRAA and GRAM, they are associated graded rings and modules of with respect to these filtrations, powers of the ideal and powers of the ideal times M. Now in JKV's lecture, you would have seen all these gadgets very often. So for any X in M, what is the initial form of X with respect to this A. I also wanted to drop that in the notation, but keep it for some time. So that is by definition, either it is 0 when the order of X with respect to this filtration is infinite. What does that mean? That means these X belong to the intersection of A power n times m. If you are in a Noetherian case, then finite module, then it will be 0. So this will only happen when X is 0 in that case. Otherwise, it can happen for, it exactly happens for all those elements X in the intersection of A power n. Okay, that is one. And then the next one is initial form is X bar. X bar is you choose an n which is an order of X with respect to that filtration m dot, and then read mod read X image of X modulo the next power, or next element in next term in the filtration, which is down. Filtration the decrease. So this X bar denote the residue class of X modulo this. It is always very important to understand definitions. So possibly with example. So suppose I was in a power series ring. I mean, we are not assuming complete. Suppose we were in a polynomial case, let us say polynomial ring over a field. And if you take filtration, ideal to be generated by the variables. And if you take any polynomial, what will be the initial form of that polynomial? That means it is the order term. The first term, first homogeneous component of F, which is non-zero. That is the initial form. So, for example, if your polynomial is x square plus y cube, then the initial form will be x square. If the initial form is x square minus y square plus y5, then the initial form will be x square minus y square, and so on. So, in general, the initial forms are defined by using this one. Now, initial form of an element X in M is either 0 or a homogeneous element of degree equal to the order, because these are precisely the homogeneous component of the graded module GRAM. So therefore, they are precisely the homogeneous element of order X. All right. And for a submodule, how to get rid of this? All right. For a submodule, n of m, the initial submodule INA of n with respect to this filtration is the homogeneous graded GRA submodule of the graded associated graded module of n. That means by which set you take all elements in n and take their initial forms, and these may not be submodule. So generate a submodule over the associated graded ring, and that will be submodule of this graded associated graded module of M. That is called the initial submodule of M. Is that clear? So many definitions. Now, these are also very important when one usually studies Grosvenor basis, etc. and so on. That is just a side remark. Now, actually, I want to recall this following preposition is a precise form, which is very important, and also I already used in one part in lecture 10. I just wrote in a blue and said that this follows, it's like a homogeneous Nakayama lemma, so it just follows. So this is a precise formulation of that part also. You can, I forgot what was the exact reference there. It is there somewhere. Now, what is the proposition? If you have a complete A-adic topology, if you have a complete ring with respect to adic topology, and M is separated for the topology defined by this adic filtration, and N is a submodule of M. And suppose X1 to XR are elements in N such that the initial module is generated by the initial forms as a graded module. Then N is generated by X1 to XR as a graded module. This is very important. This was one of the major steps in the part, if you see the part of resolution of singularities, Hironaka, this was one of the major concern there. How to find such elements, how to find a generating set so that their initial form generates the graded module. All right, so in the special case when n equal to, so I'm not proving it here. So because we left it there, so it's easy. It's not so difficult. You just patch up all, understand all the definition, and then it will prompt you what to do. All right. So otherwise I will run out of time. So maybe we can discuss in a exercise next. And next Saturday there is no exercises. So today is the last chance. You can get a chance to ask Kriti some question and I also. So you cannot because next week we have two lectures. JKV and me, we have two lectures and no tutorials because we have ran out of time. So in order to finish at a reasonable end, we have decided that we will give lectures and no tutorials. All right, what is the special case? M equal to A and M dot equal to this adic filtration and N equal to B. This initial ideal of B with respect to A is called initial ideal of B with respect to A. Now, what does it, the corollary says, this is the direct special case. If B1 to BR are elements in M and the initial ideal is generated by these initial forms, then B is generated by those elements. All right, suppose the next corollary. So as usual, A and A as the earlier assumption. If a graded ring is Noetherian, then A is also Noetherian. This is immediate from the above discussion. Okay, next corollary is if A is a Noetherian ring, then the formal power series is also Noetherian. Now, if you remember, in the last lecture or year before, the lecture before that, I have not proved this formally. We have only proved it for when A equal to K. The K is the field. And I left it that time by saying that in Atiyah McDonald's early chapter, that means the chapter on, I think it is chapter number 6 on Noetherian rings. This can be proved by imitating the proof of the polynomial case. By looking at the coefficient and then forming the ideal and so on. But this is a nice proof. So anyway, we have one proof at least. The other proof is of course more elementary. And why does this corollary follow? Because we have seen the associated graded ring of the power series ring with respect to the ideal generated by x1 to xn is precisely the polynomial. And that is Noetherian. So I might have written next here. So first of all, you need a complete ring. See, it is not true without complete. In this assumption is complete. It is very important. All these corollaries, the assumption is complete. Don't forget that. So first of all, we have noted that this power series ring over A is complete with respect to the x1, x2, xn adic topology. This we have checked in the which assignment number, I don't know. The lecture, this is 11, 10, 9th. We would have checked that this is complete by taking those, those jets and so on, and checking that Cauchy sequences are convergent. So it's complete. And that the associated graded ring is a polynomial ring. And A is Noetherian polynomial ring infinitely many variables is also Noetherian by Hilbert basis theorem, and therefore by the earlier corollary, the Paul's ring over an arbitrary Noetherian ring is Noetherian. All right. How much time do I have, Kriti?
So roughly 40 minutes.
Still 40 minutes. All right. All right. So I am a little bit faster then. Completion of a local ring. Now, as I said, I want to concentrate on the local ring, Noetherian of course, and amadic completion. And I will consider only finite modules with amadic completion. And okay, now in this next theorem, I am listing some properties which we'll use very often, or already used by JKV, I think. I have seen in his lecture that he has already used some. All right. So the first says that the canonical map iota A to A cap, this is an injective ring homomorphism. In general, it is not injective homomorphism, but in this case, it is injective. And the canonical map from iota m from m to m cap is injective A model homomorphism. Therefore, we can identify A is a subring of A cap via this iota A, and then identify M as a submodule of A M cap via iota M. This is A should be submodule. All right. The next one is A cap is a local ring with maximal ideal M cap, and M cap is extended maximal ideal. The ring homomorphism A to A cap is local. That means it maps maximal ideal inside the maximal ideal, and A cap is faithfully flat. These are already we have noted above. Some of these we would have already noted in earlier some parts. All right. So next one, if you take m power n and the cap, so this equality says that the cap and power interchanges, they are equal. And the natural map m mod m n m to m cap mod m cap n m, these are isomorphisms for all m. So the graded level maps are isomorphisms, and A cap is Noetherian ring and M cap is a finite ring. Now, before I start proving this, I will orally now mention many consequences of this. For example, if first is the embedding dimensions are same, A and A cap. The dimensions are also same, because you see here we are proving later that the graded associated graded are isomorphic, and therefore Hilbert function etc. they are all same, and therefore dimensions are same, embedding dimensions are same. So if A is regular, A cap is regular. Similarly, you can conclude A is Cohen-Macaulay, A cap is Cohen-Macaulay, A is Gorenstein, A cap is Gorenstein, and so many other properties, what probably JKV has used in his lecture. All right. So the proof of one. This map is a canonical map, is injective. We want to prove what is the kernel of iota? That is precisely the intersection of m power n, and that is 0 by Coulomb intersection there. Because this a cap is what? A cap is just Cauchy sequences, not the null sequences. So, and we have seen null sequences are precisely here. So, therefore, similarly for the iota of m. So that both are by Coulomb's intersection theorem, because m is a finite module also we are asking. All right. And now to show that a cap is local with maximal ideal m cap. I also forgot. Actually, this two is a very particular statement. I wanted to write more general, but then I would have had to go out of this rotation and so on. Instead of two, what I could have done is, suppose you have a Zariski ring. That means your ring may not be local, but we are taking a completion like here we have taken. I will just show you. Where is it? The Jacobson radical. Is it here? No. Is it above? Where is here? This is corollary 11b4. Noetherian. And we are taking the adic topology where A is contained in the Jacobson radical of M. In that case, these two I wanted to write was not A cap is local, but there is a one-to-one correspondence between the maximal spectrums. So maximal ideal will go to the maximal ideal of A cap, and this map is, so the map is also clear. Any M will go to M cap. M cap means the extended ideal from M. And this map is an isomorphism, this map is an bijective map. That is in case of Zariski ring. But here it's easier because only one maximal ideal. So one just have to prove that. What is it proved? Okay. M is finitely generated, we know, because the ring is Noetherian. Power they commute with the completion. And this one is the extended from M power n. And the topology on A cap is M cap adic topology, which is a Hausdorff, because again, we have proved that A cap is Noetherian and this is okay. So therefore it follows that the residue map is induced by this iota, is an isomorphism, is bijective, and therefore is bijective. This map is bijective. Therefore, residue class are same, and therefore this is a field. Therefore, this is a field. So it's a maximal ideal. All right. Now 3. What is 3? 3 is this. Now you tensor. So it is immediate from 2 and 11b4. What is b4? Now b4 is this one, as I said. This is here. This is faithfully flat and so on. So because of that, 3 is immediate from 2 and that one. And 4, what is 4? These natural maps are isomorphisms. Already here, you see here we have proved it. And this also, so this is easy. So still you verified. You should verify. You should not believe anybody and verify. All right. So that shows that. Then A cap is, once again I have noted, A cap is Noetherian and M cap is a finite A cap. That also you can check it like this. From 4, and we have this commutative diagram. of exact rows. And these maps are isomorphisms, that is, we have checked above, that is in 3, and therefore this will be an isomorphism. So we'll do it inductively because we have done it for n equal to 1. So that will follow from what is 6? 6 is, since A is Noetherian, graded ring is Noetherian. And because graded ring is actually generated over the field A by M by the homogeneous elements of degree 1, and they are finitely many because M is finitely generated, so M by M square is finite dimensional vector space and so on. So this is Noetherian, and therefore this is Noetherian because they are isomorphic, and therefore A cap is Noetherian. And all this refer, and therefore further M cap is a finite same situation. All right, so with this I finish, and now I will tell you what I will do it in next lectures. So in the next lecture, what I am going to do is I will concentrate on the local rings, Noetherian local rings, and we will assume it is complete. And we want to list them all. We want to classify them all. And what is the classification that we will prove? Well, the major step in this, first of all, I have noted earlier that in the first lecture also, there are two cases, equicharacteristic case and inequicharacteristic case. Equicharacteristic means the ring A and the residue field have the same characteristic. And so that can either be P, because field has characteristic prime number, or 0. So, for example, all our geometric rings, when I say geometric ring means they are coordinate rings of the algebraic varieties. All of them contain a field. Therefore, the ring and the residue field will both contain this field, and therefore they will have the same characteristic. And classical algebraic geometry actually assumes that the characteristic is 0. But anyway, the characteristic can be P because you can take polynomial ring or power series ring over Z mod P. So this will contain Z mod P, and therefore ring has characteristic P, and therefore the residue field will also have Z mod P, which also has characteristic P. So both the cases occur. Other one, inequicharacteristic means, so what can happen? If the residue field has characteristic P, then the ring may not have characteristic P. It might have characteristic power of P. This is again easy to check. And typical example is Z mod P power N. This ring has characteristic P power N, but the residue field has characteristic Z mod P. No, characteristic P. So these rings are also very important. And other cases, ring may have characteristic 0, but the residue field may have characteristic P. For example, Z localized at P. That has characteristic 0, but the residue field, which is Z mod P, has characteristic P. So these 4 cases are divided into main 2 steps, like characteristic 0, equicharacteristic, and inequicharacteristic. Now, equicharacteristic is nicer because that one can explain this without going to characteristic. That means the local ring is equicharacteristic if and only if it contains a field. This is very simple to check. So I suggest when you come next time, you please come up with a proof that equicharacteristic if and only if it contains a field. So this field may be, and this field will be a subfield of the residue field, because it's a subfield of A, so you take the natural image, compose with the residue map, and still, because it's from a field to some other field, it is injective still. So the residue field will be field extension of this field which is contained in here. Now the major step is to prove that complete local ring will contain a copy of the residue field. This is one of the major steps. Once it contains a copy of the residue field, then it is easy to prove that it is a quotient of the power series ring over that residue, over that copy of the residue. So this I should be able to prove in the next lecture completely. And in equicharacteristic case, I will state with all the concepts what are needed. Proof I will leave it, because proof will involve some other sophisticated machinery, of course, which is also very interesting and more geometric in nature. Also, which is connected to Jacobian criterion, which you have learned in the last lecture. That is criterion for non-singularity. So that concept is also, I will recall, that is called formally smoothness. And for all these, what is very important is today's first part, that is it is the inverse limit. That is why I wanted to stress on this first part, 11A part, connection of the completion with the inverse limit. So when you come next time, please get acquainted with this lecture, and as I said earlier stuff you have, then we will prove that in any case we can classify all complete local rings, characteristic, equicharacteristic as well as inequicharacteristic. And as a very important corollary which is used very often is, any complete local ring is a homomorphic image of a regular local ring. Any complete local ring is a homomorphic image of a regular local ring. This was used by JKV in his last lecture. And probably you will use it further more often when you do it next lecture, maybe tomorrow, and also the next week when he is doing canonical modules and so on. So with this I will stop.